If you have 15, 20, or 25 students on your caseload, you can't keep every goal, accommodation, service, strength, and important detail in your head, and you shouldn't have to. That's why I like to create a one-page student snapshot for each student. The snapshot does not replace the IEP. The IEP is still a source document. What the snapshot does is pull the information I need most often into one place, so I'm not digging through a long document every time I need to check a goal or accommodation or service. The key is deciding what actually belongs on that one page. So let me show you how to take the most important information from an IEP and turn it into a working reference I can actually use. All right, let's go through this student snapshot. And as a side note, if you look in the description, you'll see a link to get your own student snapshot for free. I also want to mention before we get started that this IEP is completely fake. It's fictional. I had AI create it, and it is new to me. So I just had AI create it, and I wanted to make this an authentic experience. So I have not read through this IEP myself. So it's just like it would be in real life when I get an IEP and I'm creating the student snapshot. I wanted to recreate that in this video. All right, the first thing is easy with the name. So we have Marcus Reynolds. So I'm just going to copy that over. And he is in grade 4. I am the case manager. And let's pretend that it's August 16th, which is the date that I'm recording this. Strengths and interests. I always want to start with that because it lets me know where I want to go when it comes to instruction and how I'm going to connect to the student. So that's always the first thing I look at. Let's see what they have in Marcus's present level statement. All right, he is friendly and curious. That's great. He enjoys science and building projects. That's really good information for me to have. I know that if he's curious and friendly, that tells me that he maybe is okay with friends. I'm going to still kind of watch that, but that's a good sign. And if I know that he likes science and building, that gives me an in for what to talk to him about and for the content that we might work on. So those are really good strengths. I'm going to put those over here. And let's see what his needs are. Okay, he has a specific learning disability in basic reading and also high with ADHD. So we've got some reading and we've got some ADHD. And let's see what they said about that. Academic reading, recent benchmark. Okay, he's reading at a mid-second grade level, and he's in 4th grade, so he's about a year and a half behind, and that's pretty significant. That jump from 2nd to 4th is pretty big when it comes to literacy. So this is a pretty big need that I'm seeing. And it says phonemic decoding and word attack skills are significantly below grade level. He reads 62 correct words per minute, and the benchmark is 110. Comprehension is stronger when text is read aloud to him, indicating decoding-based rather than language-based difficulty. Okay, that's a good sign. If he is able to understand things that are read to him, that tells me that he's able to think things through and he's able to probably catch things that are said orally. So that's a strength that I'm actually going to add up to my strengths and interests. So I can remember when we're working on things that his comprehension is probably not too bad if it's read to him. And that might be something that I work into classroom accommodations or my basic instruction. As far as his needs, I'm not going to get into super detail on the student snapshot. That's something that I'll do when I do my lesson planning. I'm looking at the snapshot, the big picture. So decoding is absolutely one. The decoding is a big thing. And I see that he's quite a bit behind when it comes to decoding and word attack. So that's a pretty big thing. Let's see what they say about his executive functioning because he does have the ADHD diagnosis. I see he has difficulty sustaining attention on independent tasks and initiating multi-step assignments and organizing materials. So that tells me something. So he sustaining and initiating. Because sometimes kids struggle with one and not the other, but if he has trouble getting started and staying on task, that's a pretty significant barrier, and I'm going to hope that they already have some accommodations in place for him for that. And then organizing materials sounds like that's something that might be important too. All right, let's see. Frequently loses track of directions. He's completing an average of 40% of independent seat work. That's not great. He responds well to visual schedules, chunk tasks, and frequent check-ins. Okay, that's important. That's something that I'm going to actually add up here with my strengths. It might not be a traditional strength, but it's something that if I know that this is already working for him, I want to keep that in mind and make sure that we prioritize doing that. I haven't gotten to the accommodations yet, but sometimes if you inherit an IEP, you might get a list of accommodations that's too long to be practical or maybe doesn't really fit the child. And so having this, knowing that he responds well to visual schedules, chunk tasks, frequent check-ins, I'm going to prioritize that and make sure that those things are on the accommodation list. Or if the list is too long, I might tell the teacher, hey, worry about these 3 things. We know that these will help. And so make sure you do those. So that's important. All right, let's see. We're going to skip the related services for now and look at his goals. Now, there's 2 ways that you can do the goals. You can just copy over the big idea of the goal, like reading, decoding, reading comprehension, or you can copy over the whole annual goal and objectives. This is personal and it's up to you. What I do on my student snapshots is I only put the big one. So I'll say like the goal 1, I'm not going to do all these right now, and then I would do goal 2. I only put the big one so that I remember, okay, this is what we're working on in general. And then when I do my lesson planning, that I'll show you in a future video, that's when I will put the objectives. And because I'm going to be working on, whatever piece of those objectives that I'm working on. I don't put all of that into the snapshot, but you can if you want to. That's, like I said, that's a personal decision. I'm just showing you how I do it. All right, accommodations. Let's scroll down. So pretend that I put all those goals in there. I'm just going to skip that for time. Classroom accommodations, I am going to copy all of them because this is something I need to be able to see at a glance, and I need to be able to see all of them. So I'm going to put them in here. And if this was real life, I would also read through just to check these out and see if they look good. Especially if it's a new student, new school year, I'm going to want to see, are we missing anything? Is there anything that wouldn't really fit with this particular teacher or this particular grade? And we might need to make some amendments and make some changes. So I would look through those in addition to just copying and pasting. All right, and then services. We're going to scroll back up. And so these are his services. He gets the reading instruction, some study skills work with me. These would be me as special ed teacher. And then for OT, he gets occupational therapy and consultation. So I would put all of those here. I'm not going to copy that right now because it's in a chart and it would take too long. The chart doesn't copy over real nice. So I would add those services so I see at a glance. He needs 5 times a week, 45 minutes, 3 times a week, 30 minutes. I'd have that in there. All right, communication considerations. They didn't really say anything in the PLEP, or PLAF, as we call it in my home state. They didn't really say anything about communication, and I don't know if there's much in the accommodations. I'm doing a quick skim. I don't see anything right off that's jumping out at me. So I don't know. And so that's important. I'm going to put a question mark there. I don't know if he has any communication considerations that we need to think about. So that's something I need to find out. And this is a reminder to me that, okay, you need to find that out about this little guy. Maybe it's some observations. Maybe if I still am able to contact the previous special ed teacher, I might be able to ask them. Or if you had a gen ed teacher that I'm in contact with, I can ask. But if you don't have a person that you can reach out to, do a couple observations and you'll get an idea of what's needed. And you're getting to know time with a student in the first couple of weeks, you'll see if something jumps out there. All right, important team members. Now, for this, I only put down people that are not on every single IEP. So I don't put the parent and the gen ed teacher. They are important. Undoubtedly, they are important. But because every single student has a parent or guardian or family member and every single student has a gen ed teacher, I don't need to put them down because I already know that they're going to be there. I'm looking for who is out of the ordinary or who might not be on every single caseload. So in this case, he gets OT, both direct services and consultation. And so I'm going to want to add the OT therapist because it's not something typical that every student gets. And if this is an OT that I don't work with regularly, I would also add their contact information if it's not somebody that I already have where their name's going to pop up when I want to send an email. Okay, and then current concern, we only have the IEP. Let's pretend that we don't have the last progress report or anything, so we don't really know for sure what the last thing was that they were working on. But when I look through the present level and I see where he's at, I am pretty concerned about that decoding. He's pretty far behind, and so that's something that's going to be a number one for me that I want to see what's going on. My other current concern is the executive functioning. So I'm going to make a note of that because I need to know exactly where he's at right now, and I need to know what that's going to look like in his current classroom. If he is really struggling to get on task or stay on task, the gap is going to get wider, and so I need to figure out where he's at and what I can do to help him. So those are my two concerns just from reading this and without meeting him. These are the two things that I would put down. And with that, my immediate next step is going to be linked to this. I have 3 things that I want to do for him. So the first thing is I want to do a decoding probe. I don't need to do a full assessment, but I need to see where he's at right now. If this is the fall and he's had the whole summer, did he go backwards? Or maybe he had some advancements over the summer and some stuff started to click for him, or maybe the parents worked with him or had a tutor. So I need to figure out where exactly he's at. So I'm just going to do a quick and dirty little decoding probe to see where he's at compared to the last time. The next thing I want to do, because I'm worried about this executive functioning, is I'm going to do some classroom observations. And I will probably do, if I can fit it into my schedule, I would like to do at least 2 and preferably 3 or 4 relatively short observations of 5 to 15 minutes. That's enough time. I would do one that focuses on on-task, off-task behavior. I would do another that focuses on duration to see how long does it take for him to get started on task and how long does it take to get back on task. So I want that baseline data. And I might even do just kind of a general observation just to see what he does and just how does he interact with his peers. Might help me. Is there any communication things that I notice? Does he blurt or is he one that's too quiet and doesn't answer? So I would really like to do some observations so I can see exactly what's going on with this student and exactly how he's interacting in the classroom with this new teacher. And then the third thing is I need to get to know him. So I'm probably going to do some low stakes games. So some low stakes games or some low stakes activities that I can just get a feel for what he thinks and, what he cares about. I might do a building challenge with him since I know he likes building. I might just play a regular game with him just to see how his communication is. How does he do if he gets frustrated? I need to figure out what makes him tick. So these would be my 3 priorities with a brand new student that I am just getting to know. And with all of that, I now have a student snapshot. I will go in and add more information about the communication considerations once I get to know him. And like I said, the goals, those I'm going to put on a different document when I get into lesson planning. But now that I have this, anytime that I have a question, if I have to look back and see what exactly were his accommodations or what were we working on, I can pull this up and I have that information at my fingertips. The goal of a student snapshot is not to squeeze the entire IEP onto one page. That would defeat the whole purpose. Instead, it's to decide what information you need readily available in order to support that student well. Think about it this way. If it's something you're going to reference regularly, put it on the snapshot. If it's something you only need occasionally, you can always go back to the full IEP. And remember that a student snapshot still contains confidential student information, so treat it with the same care you would any other special education record. All right, at this point, you've built 3 different layers of organization. Your local systems map helps you understand how your school works. Your caseload dashboard helps you see what's happening across your entire caseload. And your student snapshots help you quickly access what matters for each individual student. Those 3 systems can make the first few weeks of a new special education job much more manageable. Don't forget to get your free student snapshot. The link is in the description. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any videos. I'm going to keep working through the tools in my first 30 days toolkit, and I'll answer any questions that you have along the way. Until next time, I'm Dr. Kathy White.